Today we're going to be learning how to fill out our nav logs. And usually flight plans start and end greater than 50 miles. And usually your first checkpoint is going to be where you're taking off, and you put that right here. And usually checkpoints are 10 to 15 miles apart. And say, now we'll move to the tripod with the camera. Right. Now that we have our sectional out, this is Devil's Lake, and this is Grand Forks. Altogether, it's around 75 miles apart, which is a good flight plan. After you've finished drawing out your line, you then want to measure 10 to 15 miles for a checkpoint, which is this. Good checkpoints, by the way, are lakes, rivers, creeks, islands, dams, lighthouses, and of course towns and other easy visible things. What I've marked here is the town of Doyen, and that is about 14 miles away. That's a good checkpoint. And by the way, when you're doing checkpoints with lakes, because we do in fact have a lake here, you do not want to use the center of lakes, you want to use more of the edge. And so you end up writing your second checkpoint, which is Doyen for me. Next we'll be going with our frequencies and identifiers. Our frequency is found in the, I believe to be blue boxes, or they're purple. They will be in the left bottom corner, and that will be your frequency, which is for your VOR if you choose to use a VOR. If you don't, that's fine. For your identifier, that would be your Morse code that you'd also find in the purple or blue box. That will be in the bottom right corner. And you just fill those in. And for course, which we'll be moving on to next, that would be where you put your heading out from start and in from end with your VOR. If you're not going to be using a VOR, you just put an X in the box. Okay, up next, we're gonna do altitude. And for altitude, you want to consider weather, which is like all the storms, obviously. If they're going to be severe, obviously you probably wouldn't want to be flying in them. But if they're going to be moderate, you'd also want to put in the factor of the cloud level, whether the ceiling is above or below where you've chosen to fly at. You'd probably want to add that into your factor of what you choose for an altitude. And so when you look for your altitude numbers, you'd want to look on your map. You'd want to look for which grid box your altitude number falls in. So for our flight here, you'd look for the longitude and latitude lines, which you probably won't be able to see on the camera, but they all create boxes. Which for our flight, we'd have a box right around here on the latitude and longitude lines. And this will be our highest altitude point throughout our entire flight, which is 3,100 feet, which will end up having an obstruction which will go up to 3,100 feet, so you obviously want to be aware of it, and make sure you're at a safe height to not have to worry about that obstruction. Once you find your altitude number, you'll want to add around 500 feet just for safety. And if you're flying east, which we are, which is a heading of 0 to 179, you'd want to be in the odd thousands. And for west, which is a heading of 180 through 359, you want to be in the even thousands. For odd thousands, you'd be like 1,500 and 3,500. For even thousands, it'd be like 500 and 2,500. So for ours, we end up with 3,600, which is above the height we'd want to be at, which is 3,500. So which you'd end up just skipping to the next. So here's our little diagram. So you got 1,500, 3,500, 5,500, and down here, which you can't see, is 75. Our altitude goes above 3,500, so we'd want to skip to the next one for safety and fly at 5,500. After you find your altitude, you just place that number in this box. Next, we'll go on to wind velocity and direction, as well as temperature. Usually these are given by your instructor if you have one. If not, you can find them with the flight service station or the FSS. And you just apply those numbers to wherever they go inside here. Next, we'll be going to our true airspeed. Usually this is given. If not, it's just a comfortable speed, which you'd probably know by heart for your airplane. You just fill that in this box. Next, we're going to be going with true course. You define this using your sectional. So to find your true course, you need to find a longitude line, which are the ones that go up and down, and your course line. So let's say right here, we have a longitude line that intersects with our course. To find this, you'd want to line up your plotter. In the plotter, you have a dot right in the middle. You'd want to line that up with your intersection. And then after that, you'd want to line up the wings of the plotter with your course so that it correctly finds true course. And you'd want to determine whether you are going east or west. If you're going east, which we are, you'd want to use the outer numbers. So this is what we would be using. If you're going west, you want to use the inside numbers, which would be right in here. So to find that, you'd find the angle in which your longitude line hits your protractor on your plotter. For us, we will have 100 since we're going east. After you find your true course, you then just fill that in this box. Next, you'll be finding your wind correction angle, which would be then placed in this box. To find that, you'd be using your E6B, and it'd be at the back of the E6B. There is a clear step-by-step instructions on the back, which will there show you how to find it.
Alright, so the next thing that we have to do is find the true heading. That is found using the wind correction angle that you got from the E6B earlier. If that wind correction angle was to the left of the center line on the E6B, then you would subtract it from true course. If it was to the right, then you would add it to true course. So if the true course was 180, and the wind correction angle was 5 degrees to the left, then your true heading would be 175. Now we are going to move over to the sectional to look at how to find variation. Alright, to find variation, you have to use the vertical purple lines that are up and down the sectional. If you are going from Devil's Lake to Grand Forks, each checkpoint will have a different variation depending on which purple line you're closest to. So since you're starting in Devil's Lake, the variation, it's closest to this line, and this line is 5 degrees east. So on the nav log, you would put 5 degrees into the variation spot. And then each checkpoint you would measure, or you would figure out which purple line it's closest to. So if I was over in Lakota right here, it'd still be closest to this 5 degree east line, because the one right next to Devil's Lake is 5 degrees, and the one right next to Grand Forks is 4 degrees. So then you would keep moving towards Grand Forks, and as soon as you got beyond halfway between these two, the two purple lines that we see on the map, then those checkpoints would start using the 4 degree one, which is right next to Grand Forks. So let's say the first checkpoint is Devil's Lake, so the variation is going to be 5 degrees because it's closest to that line. So I'm going to move back to the nav log. Now that we're back at the nav log, the variation we found was 5, so I'm going to put 5 in here. And it was 5 degrees east according to the line. And you can find that number towards the top and bottom of each sectional. So it was 5 degrees east, so we subtract it from true heading. So magnetic heading is going to be 170. And then deviation is really easy because it's always 0 when we're doing this in class. So it's always 0. So course heading is going to be the same as magnetic heading at 170. So true course and wind correction angle, as long as the weather is the same, they're going to be the same for the whole flight. And then so is true heading, but after variation, because that changes during the flight. So that would change as you go down. All right, and then for leg and remaining for the distance, that's found using the distance between each leg. So from, let's say you were going from K-Biz, which is Bismarck, down to Grand Forks. Obviously there's going to be more checkpoints than 2, but I'm just going to put it here so it's all visible. Let's say you have a checkpoint where there's a river intersecting a road. And let's say it was 11 miles from Bismarck, the Bismarck airport. So for leg you would put 11 miles, and then for remaining you would subtract 11 from the original distance. So let's say the original distance was 100, even though it's not, let's just say it is. Then you would put 89 in the box here. So that's the remaining. And then let's say there was another one where there's a railroad track. Railroad, and then it intersects a road. 10 miles. So then you would subtract 10 from the 89 to get 79. And then you would just continue to do that for the whole trip until you get to 0. Alright, so now for estimated ground speed. That is found using the E6B, and you guys know how to do that, so I'm not going to go over that. So let's say our estimated ground speed was 115. For the actual ground speed, we're going to go over that later. That's a little different on how you find that. Alright, now let's say our time off was at noon. ETE, or estimated time en route, is also found using the E6B, and you're basically dividing ground speed by distance. And then you plug that time into the ETE. ATE, again, we're going to go over later, as well as ATA, which are the actuals. Alright, now for ETA, which is estimated time of arrival, you take the time that you took off and add the estimated time en route. So let's say the estimated time en route was 5 minutes. You would arrive at 12:05. And then actual times we don't know yet. We'll find that out later during the flight. And then let's just do another one just to practice. Let's say the estimated time en route between the river road intersection and the railroad and road intersection is 6 minutes. Then you would say 12:11. Close enough. Alright, now we are going to go over fuel. Total fuel is usually 50 gallons. Gallons per hour, that's given by your instructor. So let's just say it was 7, just to make it easy. Alright, so the fuel box is going to be how much fuel you burn per leg, and that's found using the E6B again. You take your gallons per hour and multiply it by your estimated time en route. So it'll be gallons per hour times time. And that's how you get fuel. And then remaining fuel, you just subtract the fuel from 50 gallons, or the one before it. So let's say your fuel you burnt was 0.9, close enough. You get 49.1. And then let's say you burn 1 gallon on the next leg, then you would get 48.1. And that's how you find fuel. Next we will be going over what you find in the airport directory book, and that is down here.
Next, we'll be using the airport directory book. This is page 294 in the airport directory book. Our destination is Grand Forks International Airport. Our destination will be Grand Forks International Airport. The departure would be where you left the airport, and we're just going to do destination today. So our destination will be KGFK, which is Grand Forks International. Then our ATIS for this flight will be located right here, and that would be 119.4. If there is no ATIS, you put an X in the box on your nav log. Next, you'll find your ground or approach. Not all airports will have this, so put an X in the box if it doesn't. And that'll be located right here. And then after that, we'll find the tower, which not all airports have them, but if they don't, just put an X in the box. Tower will be located right here. Next is the departure for ground. Also, not all airports have them. Put an X in the box if they don't. It'll be located right here. The CTAF will be located right here. The flight service station, often referred to as the RCO in the book, will be located right there. All airports have them. Put an X in the box. If you have room on your nav log, place them both, but if you don't, just place one of them. Next will be your TPA or traffic pattern altitude. Find elevation and add 1,000. Your field elevation will be located right here. And your traffic pattern altitude is 1,000 feet above that. So it would be 1,845, for example. Next will be your airport diagram, which you'll have to place in the top part of your nav log. It's located right here. You need to place airport runways, any dimensions, and then also make sure you label them right here with the direction you're flying into them at. And make sure you draw an arrow from the direction you're coming from. Say we're coming in from this direction, just put in arrows. Next we'll be going over actuals. So the estimated time en route on this flight was 5 minutes. So then it went to your estimated time of arrival, which was 12:05 here. But when you're flying, you have to have the actual times. So your actual time en route, if you're recording, would depend on your flight, obviously, and your checkpoints. Let's just say it's 4 for this one here. So then you'd put 12:04 in your actual time of arrival over here. And you just keep doing that all the way down and record from each checkpoint to each checkpoint how long it took. Next we'll be going over actual ground speed, which is all right here. To do that, you'd use your E6B by dividing your actual time en route by the distance of each leg. That would be it.
That's it. And that concludes.
And that concludes how to fill out a nav log. This is just an outline that follows the video that we just did. It's available on Moodle if you ever need to get to it for some reason. Here's just the end of it here. This is all the definitions that were used on the Nav Log. The first one is Nav Log, which is a piece of paper used to record information about cross-country flying. The next one is checkpoints. It's, according to the Nav Log, a defined object around 10 to 15 miles from the last point or start point. Ground speed is how fast you're traveling over the ground in an aircraft. Variation is the difference between true north and magnetic north. True speed is the exact speed the aircraft is flying through the air. VOR is VHF, omnidirectional radial range. Altitude is the height of the plane is above sea level. True course, the angle between the true meridian and the direction of the aircraft. True heading is the heading measured clockwise from true north. ATIS, automatic terminal information service, gives airport information. FSS, flight service station, a station aircraft pilots can call for hourly up-to-date weather information in any U.S. state. Identifier is the Morse code on a location used to help identify a location. Course is the direction which you are traveling on a flight, start to end point. Leg is the distance from one checkpoint to another. Time off is the time you take off from the runway. ETE is estimated time en route, the estimated time in which it takes you to fly from one checkpoint to another. ETA is estimated time of arrival, the estimated time in which you arrive at a destination. ATE is actual time en route, the actual amount of time it takes you to fly from one checkpoint to another. ATA is actual time of arrival, the actual time in which you arrive in a desired location. GPH is gallons per hour, which is the amount of fuel an aircraft uses in 1 hour. TPA, traffic pattern altitude, is the height in which you fly above an airport in a traffic pattern. Airport directory book is the book in which a person can find required nav log information on airports and runways. And finally, WCA, wind correction angle, is the corrected angle in which you fly due to wind. These websites here are the ones we used in the video. You can use these links to get to the websites we were talking about. This website is called skyvectors.com. It is an easy way to find different locations on it. This website is an easy way to find different towns and cities on the sectional. It just helps you out, saves you a little bit of time. This website is called www.csgnetwork.com. It just helps. Say if you can't figure it out with the regular E6B, it just helps you out. Or if you don't have one, it just helps you out a little bit. Helps you can fill out all your information below and helps you out. This website here is just an example of a nav log if you ever can't remember how to do something. So this website is called adventureinthesky.files.wordpress.com.
Okay, and that wraps up our lesson on filling out the nav log.